Welcome to this special edition of HipMojo on WatchMojo.com. I'm your host, Ashkan Karbas-Fushan. Very special show. Kevin O'Leary is here. Obviously, you recognize him from Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. You have a new book out, Cold Hard Truth.
Yes, I do.
I read this on the plane to and back from New York. It's a very good book. It touches on business, money, and life. When and why did you decide to write a book?
You know, I think I did it for one specific reason. I think that any entrepreneur that's had success owes the next generation a roadmap on how to get there. Not so much in celebrating the successes of what I've achieved, it's the failures that have the real lesson in them, because what I'm trying to do here is say, look, here's what not to do. Here's the mistakes I made that are very costly, and if you can avoid them, please do, because I think that's much more valuable than talking about success.
Okay, we're going to talk about some of the failures, some of the victories. We're going to talk about some of your weaknesses and how you address that. It's a fascinating book. When I started reading this, I was going to ask you, like the first question was going to be money, power, success, respect, or fame. What's more important? I think you make it abundantly clear money is the most important thing. So address that. Why is money the most important thing?
It's not money per se that I'm pursuing. It's freedom I'm pursuing. I'm very specific in the book saying, look, the reason that you're willing to sacrifice so much if you're an entrepreneur is one goal: to achieve freedom. Because what is wealth? Wealth is the ability to do whatever you want, go wherever you wish, don't answer the phone if you don't want to, stay in bed all day if you like, go anywhere, do anything. That's what freedom is. And I think it's a very noble pursuit, because a lot of good things stem from that. You build businesses, you create jobs, you advance the economy, and you're free.
Yeah, I think if I were to draw a little storyline throughout the book, it would be money equals gravity equals truth equals freedom. And I think the way you cast it like that, it was very nice, although it wasn't juxtaposed one to another, but throughout the chapters. Now, after money, what is more important? Power, success, respect, or fame? You touch on a few of those things throughout the book.
I think respect. I think, you know, if you achieve your success in a way that others respect, that's a good thing. You know, I'm not worried about criticism, and I get a lot of it for telling the truth. My big mantra is, look, if you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said. It's that simple. And sometimes people get emotionally attached to their ideas in business. But my attitude is that money doesn't have a soul. It doesn't cry for you. It doesn't have feelings, and you shouldn't have feelings for it. It's a tool. And so at the end of the day, if you tell the truth about a business opportunity, or you talk about investments, and people get emotionally involved and they're upset, I don't care about that. It's still the truth.
Yeah, no, that's true. You touch on that, actually. I think two names you use to describe yourself are, what is it, Mr. Wonderful and the Merchant of Truth.
Yeah,
if you had to pick one, which one would it be?
Well, you know, Mr. Wonderful nomenclature came from, you know, a sarcastic remark on, I think, Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, when somebody said, you think you're Mr. Wonderful for telling the truth. And I thought, that's a great name. I'm going to go with that. But I think I am the Merchant of Truth, because I never lie to anybody. I mean, my attitude is, look, if you can't take the truth, then don't even attempt to be an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, the cold, hard facts of every deal are going to come to light anyways. That's just how it is.
I agree totally. Okay, so whenever I read about successful people, I try to see if they're in one of two baskets. Either they're crazy risk takers that, you know, sort of overlook any fear, or they're very conservative and they just manage to build a business. So lessons from your mom, I could see you're very conservative on one side, but you've also taken a lot of risks. So what drives you more? Is it just the desire to succeed, or is it the risk of failure and you just account for that?
I think that's a great question. And I think what happens is your profile for risk changes as you age, because you realize how hard it is to make money. You know, I put about 5% of my annual portfolio into venture investments, which are highly risky. I make the assumption when I invest there that the chances of me being successful are very low, and it can go to zero. So that 5% of my net worth is always at risk of going to zero, but it's only 5%. The rest of my money I'm very conservative with. I buy instruments that generate yield, so lots of bonds with interest, lots of dividend-paying stocks, which is what I learned from my mother. I do not own a single security that doesn't pay interest, and I look at my portfolio like a chicken on a spit dripping cash. That's, you know, what I often say about it. Every month I want to check, because I'm putting money in harm's way.
Okay, I want to come back on entrepreneurship, but now you're touching on investing. So clearly the O'Leary funds are, you know, a value vehicle. We get that. You know, they got to pay a dividend, which I think is smart. You mentioned you raised $1.5 billion in 3 years, which you said was a record.
It is.
Okay, well, assuming it is, just playing devil's advocate, wasn't that easy because it was after the crash where people were burnt? Like I'm not doubting you, but wouldn't it have been hard to do that in a bull market where people overlook risk?
I don't think so, because I think at the end of the day, as the population ages, you think about this massive, large group that are baby boomers going into their 50s and 60s. What they need now is not capital appreciation. They need two metrics, preservation and yield. It used to be easy in Canada to get 6% return on your money. You can't get near that anymore. So I've had to figure out a way to use money managers that are able to buy securities globally in countries like Brazil, India, China, Asian countries where they have fast GDP growth, but we don't have anymore. So I can buy the securities in these large multi-billion-dollar market cap companies, but they're abroad. Then I have to hedge it back to the Canadian dollar so there's no currency risk. This is complicated stuff. Then I can get them 6%. And it turns out there's tens of thousands of them that want that. I did not anticipate that we would end up with, we've actually raised $1.9 billion. Who knew that could happen? The banks thought it would be 50 million. I think that this value yield proposition that my mother taught me is exactly what the market needs today.
Now, you're very bullish on Brazil. Everyone is always talking India or China, China or India. I share that optimism with Brazil, but do you invest in Brazil? Maybe not just because of the core macro reality there, that it's a good opportunity, but just because maybe India and China have been overinvested? Like, how much of it is one has been forgotten, and how much is it that the other one may already have way too much money in there and prices have gone up too much?
I don't do geographic allocation. Here's how I work. Let's say I decide that I want to have 20% of my portfolio in telco, which I like. I love telco because it's big infrastructure, it's a growing market in emerging markets, and it pays huge dividends. Cell operators. So let's take Brazil, for example. I'm agnostic to whether I buy Rogers or Shaw or the Brazilian telco. I just look at the companies individually and I say to myself, which one pays the highest dividend, has the highest growth rate, has the lowest debt on its balance sheet, and has the best, let's call it industry characteristics, maybe the largest market share. The most expensive telco on earth, in other words, let's just say the multiple of free cash flow, which is a concept of measuring a business's value. The number one most expensive, so to me would be the riskiest, is Rogers. It is the most expensive telco on earth.
Why is that?
Because Canadians don't want to invest outside of the country, and there's very few large telco operators, so they're willing to spend a crazy multiple to own Rogers. And have you done that, you've made nothing on your capital for the last 3 years because the stock has done nothing. Institutions realize it's very expensive and they don't invest their money there. Then let's look at something like the Brazilian telco. The dividend yield is north of 7%. It's got 34 million subscribers, bigger than all the telcos in Canada put together. The lowest debt of any balance sheet. Which one am I going to invest in? I'm going to invest in the Brazilian one, which is where I do have my money.
You're very binary. It's always very black and white. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. It's something I wish I had more. But let's, away from investing, let's just shift gears and when you talk about trouble or use problematic employees never change. Let's now jump back to management.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that?
Yeah, I do. The way I look at it, because I've had a long history of doing this in many, many businesses, the minute it crosses my mind to fire somebody is when I fire them. I never think about it a second time because I've learned they never get better. Giving them time to fix themselves never works. And while they're in your business, they're poisoning it. An employee is an interesting concept because they're a cost. And you want to eliminate costs when they're not efficient. And so let's just, take an arm's length and take the emotion out of it. You want the employees that are adding value, that are happy to work there, that are pursuing wealth of some kind and stability. You want to eliminate the ones that aren't doing that. So that's what I do. To me, it's like a diseased body. You want to cut that organ out if it's diseased so that the rest of the body remains healthy. That's exactly the analogy. But look, I'm very fair about it, and I fire them myself. And I've been fired many times. This is part of the...
Yeah, the gum scraping incident.
Sure. The issue is this is the Darwinian nature of business. The DNA of a business is to make money, not to be a social club. If you want to save a baby whale, you can do that after you've taken your profits out of the business. And I don't go to work to make friends. I go there to make money. So if you want a friend, buy a dog.
You open up two tangents, so let's stay on the binary gray. Okay, you also say people are either like an employee or an employer, and I love the sort of the entrepreneur.
Well, is there any other kind of person?
Well, no, but I personally, I was an executive for a few years, and I got a good kick out of that, and then I said, I want to now start a company. So I started WatchMojo. Now, if somebody comes and buys me tomorrow, like my little Mattel, maybe smaller scale, I'm perfectly fine for a few years being the executive. but you, I see you're not like that. But do you think that it's really that great that people are either an employee and they can't lead, or can lead but not be the top guy who has all the weight on his shoulder? Don't you think that there is a gray matter? Like,
well, I've tried being an employee, and it doesn't work for me. I don't know how to do it. So, it'll never work for me. So if somebody buys my companies, I generally leave and start a new one because that's what I know how to do. I tried working for a while inside Mattel, but I was one of the largest shareholders of the company, and I never...
How much did you have share-wise? I mean, I know what the deal was. What did you
Well,
have?
what happened was we took half cash, half stock. And so if you looked at the executives of Mattel, they didn't really own much stock. They had a bunch of options. So I showed up the first day of work, and I owned more stock than the CEO did. So anytime I didn't like something I saw and how it was being operated, I would say, look, I'm a huge shareholder here, and I want you to fix that. And that just drove
this is
me.
now a great opening. Let's take a short break.
Sure.
Let's come back. I want to talk about the Mattel deal. We'll be right back for segment 2 of HipMojo with Kevin O'Leary.